just been connected to the largest spiritual network on the planet, The Jeffrey Daugherty Show.
Jeffrey Daugherty.
Sink or swim, deep end information, parabiblical research, spiritual technologies, personal empowerment. Be your own guru. Guide your own spirit. Master your own ascension. And now, showing you how, here's Jeffrey Daugherty.
Well, hello again. This is Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower. We're going to dive right back in to Apostle Paul Antichrist, the new 410-page version, 50 more pages, footnotes, annotated. Good to go. Get it at imnck.com or email me, Jeffrey, at imnck.com. We'll get it right back to you. Last time we left, we were talking about Paul having finally been browbeaten by the apostles to come to Jerusalem and spend some time there. He did, came for a apostolic council, and then he was sent back to Antioch with some chaperones, if you will, or with some people to check him out and make sure, or really just to see what he was doing. That didn't work out so well. The people that went with him all decided to leave him and come back with reports that he was teaching against what the apostles had sent him to teach, that he was not teaching what the apostles sent him to teach. And one thing he was remembering was to take that offering, brother. And he did that most efficiently. So James, in reaction to this, decides to bring out the big guns. And for some reason, I think of Peter with big guns, you know, big biceps and triceps. I don't know why. Pulling in fishing nets, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, he sent Peter to Antioch to get the lowdown on Paul so they could really figure out what was going on with this guy. Was he true? Was he false? Was he real? Was he fake? Did he have a conversion, or was he trying to run a scam on them? Was he an evangelist now, or was he really still just the executioner, the butcher from Tarsus? And the thing that strikes me about this is James and the apostles did everything they could to try to bring Paul into the household of faith. They did everything they could to try to vet him. They did everything they could to try to bring him to the place where he could come under apostolic authority, leadership, and be in unity with them. And yet, after this, Paul was to write, I went and saw the apostles, and they added nothing to me. Think of the arrogance, the unmitigated arrogance of that statement. Here's a guy, Saul of Tarsus, who says that the men who lived with Jesus every day for 3.5 years, walking with him, talking with him, listening to his teaching, that they could not add one single thing to him. Can you imagine that? How arrogant do you have to be? And really, how stupid do you have to be to say that 12 people that spent a combined 40 years, over 40 years, with Jesus of Nazareth, and not one of them could add even one thing to Paul? How arrogant is that rat bastard? I mean, it's just that simple. But anyway, he sent Peter to Antioch to hang with Paul for a while. And Paul was watching, Paul was observing. He was seeing what was going on. He was observing Paul's preaching. He was observing Paul's teaching. He was observing Paul's manner of life. And guess what happens? It's not a surprise. The arrogant Paul, the arrogant Saul of Tarsus, goes after the Apostle Peter in front of the entire congregation. He dresses down, attacks Peter, the apostle of Jesus, in front of the whole congregation. Now, if you know anything about the Bible, you know that it is outlined how you deal with brethren that you think are wrong. And if Paul is allegedly a follower of Jesus, then he would follow the teachings of Jesus. And the way it's supposed to work is this. If you have a problem with a brother, you're supposed to go to him personally and say, hey, look, bro, I think this is wrong. I think that's not right. You're bugging me here. You're bugging me there. Help me with this. Why are you doing that? That's step number one, according to Jesus. If you have a problem with a brother, you go to him personally, mano a mano, one-on-one, brother to brother, bro to bro. And you say, look, I don't like this. Or you say, look, what about that? Paul didn't do it. He jumped him right in front of the whole congregation. And then the Jesus prescription is, okay, you go to the guy or the gal and you say to them, hey, look, this is the thing. You go to them one-on-one and you can't get resolution there. Well, there's another step. Then you go to the leadership of the church or to another brother, somebody that is maybe older or wiser or more respected in the group, and you say, hey, look, here's the thing. Here's the situation. Here's the scenario. Both of you go ideally. If the offender in your eyes won't go with you, well, then you just go and tell somebody else, hey, look, man, this is what happened. And then that senior person can decide between and give recommendations. Paul didn't do that. He yelled at him in front of the whole church. And then step number 3 in the Jesus prescription is, if he refuses you one-on-one, if he refuses the elders and the leadership, then you take it before the whole church, explain the situation to the whole church, and let the whole church decide. Let the whole congregation decide, the whole community decide. Paul didn't do any of that. And how can you claim to be a Christian? How can you claim to be saved? How can you claim to be a preacher? How can you claim even to be an apostle when you will not, do not follow the prescribed rules of personal conduct within the group? Paul was a liar from the beginning. He was an arrogant SOB from the beginning, and he's nothing but a deceiver, and he's deceived us all for 2,000 years, and you need to wake up and realize this. It's just, it's gone on too long. Wake up and smell the coffee. The guy was rotten from the beginning, and his actions show it. So Peter, I can imagine Peter about ready to rip his head off. But Peter did not do it. Peter did not resist him in front of the congregation. Peter did it right. Walked away, went back to Jerusalem, and reported to James, hey, look, man, we got a problem. This guy, Saul of Tarsus, Paul, jumped me in front of the entire congregation. This guy's calling himself the true apostle. This guy's saying he's preaching the true gospel. This guy is getting ready to right the churches with his doctrine. And we got to do something about it. That's the situation that they found themselves in the early church, 35, 40, 45 AD. And they had to make a decision about what to do with Saul of Tarsus, Paul come lately. They had to decide what to do. Paul was teaching that we're all born in sin and can only be cleansed by blood sacrifice, can only be cleansed by following his teachings, that the law of God had been done away with, the 10 Commandments were gone, no more Sabbath, no more holy days, and he had resisted Peter in front of the entire church, dressed him down in violation of church, they call it polity, but on just good common sense and good courtesy. He was in violation of that. And they had to do something, they being the apostles. They had to decide what to do. They had to decide what to do with Paul, the apostle, with this guy calling himself that at any rate. So they decided, in view of the fact that Paul was getting ready to write and spread his alternative, I'll be nice, his alternative gospel, they decided they better go ahead and get in front of him and write and present their own versions and their own defenses of that which Jesus had already presented. So they went to writing. They went on an expedited writing mission, James and Peter being first and foremost among them. They were going to get their explanation of what was going on out to the churches. And you need to know and realize that the Old Testament was not written Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, Corinthians, so forth and so on. The first book written and published in the New Testament was the book of James, because it was a preemptive attack on the gospel, the false gospel. Well, I'm trying to be nice. The alternative gospel of Paul. Peter's writings were next because they too were an attack on the alternative writings of Paul. And they were written for that purpose. And when you begin to read the New Testament in its order of the way it was actually published, then you begin to see and realize and know and understand how the doctrine developed, how the doctrine was published and came along. And actually, I'm wrong. James was published first, and then Paul got his answer in with the Thessalonians coming on the heels of James. But at any rate, the debate was on. And it was a debate, it was a battle for the minds of men in the New Testament between the apostles writing, and mainly James and Peter, they being the leaders at first, and Paul writing and refuting. It was a back and forth doctrinal debate between the message of the original apostles and the original message of Jesus and the alternative gospel of Paul. And I don't care what you think, what you say, read the Bible in its chronological order. If you don't know what that chronological order is, send me an email, jeffrey@imnck.com. Go to my website, and I will send you the Apostle Paul Antichrist fact sheet, which has the chronological order of the New Testament. And you're calling me a liar, a cheater, ugly, my mama dresses me funny, and you didn't even know that the New Testament was published out of order. You don't even know what the chronological order of the New Testament is. You're calling me false when you don't even know basic things about the New Testament. So why don't you just quit popping off about me for a little while and do your homework? And then once you really know what's going on and once you really have done some study, then come back and talk to me instead of the repent, you're a sinner, you're of Satan. I'm tired of hearing that stupidness, that stupidity, and I'm just deleting it. So do a little bit of research, and if you come at me like Jim Rome used to say, have a take and don't suck. Because if you do, you're deleted. Anyway, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower. Cliff's going to tell you now how to get a hold of me. And until tomorrow, deep breath. This is Jeffrey Daugherty wishing you peace and light.
Stay connected with the largest spiritual network on the planet, www.imnck.com. On Facebook, Jeffrey Daugherty and Jeffrey Daugherty Show. And on Twitter at NC Kabbalah. Visit imnck.com today and learn how to create yourself and live the life you'll love.